Welcome to the Rugby Obsession Deep Dive. Right off the bat, if you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button to Rugby Obsession so you never miss out on these conversations.
Yeah, definitely subscribe. We've got a seriously fascinating one today.
We really do. So I want you to imagine a world where, like, a cynical foul in international rugby doesn't result in this grueling, dramatic 14-man defensive stand.
Right.
Instead, the referee just blows the whistle, points to the post, and awards a basketball-style free throw, guaranteed points.
It sounds totally insane, right? Like a radical fever dream.
Exactly. But former England head coach Eddie Jones thinks this isn't just some wild idea. He actually thinks it might be the inevitable future of the sport.
Which is a massive statement coming from him.
Huge. So today we are pulling from a really fantastic piece on Planet Rugby by Jack Tunney. He recently unpacked Eddie Jones's appearance on the Rugby Unity podcast.
Right, and he pulled out some incredible insights from that interview.
Yeah, we are using Jones's 3 major takeaways from that absolutely thrilling Six Nations finale between England and France to explore the massive evolution happening across international rugby right now.
Because there's just so much changing at the moment.
So much. We're going to look at the agonizing search for team identities, the physiological realities facing returning superstars, and potentially changing the very laws of the game to satisfy a modern audience. Okay, let's unpack this.
It really is a perfect cross-section of where the sport is at this exact moment.
Yeah.
You have Eddie Jones, someone who obviously knows the English setup intimately, stepping back and evaluating the current squad under Steve Borthwick.
Yeah, and his first major takeaway is focused entirely on identity, right? Or rather, the incredibly painful public struggle to forge one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, the whiplash that England fans have experienced during this tournament is staggering.
Oh, totally. If you look at the tactical tape from the matches against Scotland and Ireland, England was widely criticized for barely getting out of first gear.
Yeah, the mechanics of their game just look completely broken in those matches.
They were relying heavily on this deeply structured, territory-based kicking game, but the kick chase was disconnected, the defensive line speed was hesitant.
It really looked like a team paralyzed by overthinking,
Right. But then you get to the finale against France, and suddenly you are watching a completely unrecognizable system.
It was so fluid, the ball was moving through the hands, the attacking shape was expansive.
It genuinely looked like 2 entirely different squads wearing the same jerseys.
And that extreme variance is exactly why the external criticism has been so deafening. The Planet Rugby article specifically highlights commentators like Stuart Barnes, who has been aggressively urging the RFU to sack Steve Borthwick.
Wow. Yeah, Barnes labels Borthwick a master of short-term turnarounds, doesn't he?
He does. He argues that the lack of consistency proves there's just no underlying foundation. I mean, when a fan watches a team alternate between stalling out with a sterile kicking game and suddenly firing on all cylinders with wide attacks, it feels chaotic.
You just assume the coaching staff has no direction and is throwing tactics at the wall to see what sticks.
Exactly. But Eddie Jones absolutely rejects that premise. He actually defends Borthwick's process here, which is fascinating given their history.
Yeah, Jones insists that Borthwick has a very clear vision, right? Like, he knows the specific physiological and tactical profiles of the players he wants.
Right. It's just that from the outside, that blueprint is still invisible.
It makes me think of, like, a band going into a recording studio to make their debut album.
Oh, I like that comparison. How so?
Well, they aren't just jamming aimlessly, right? They are isolating different instruments to see what works. In one session, they crank the bass all the way up, which in rugby terms is Borthwick testing a pure forward-dominant kicking game against Scotland.
And it sounds terrible on its own.
Exactly. Then the next session, they strip the bass away and isolate the high-end synths, which is him testing an expansive backline-heavy distribution game.
Right. So to a fan standing outside the studio door, the mix sounds completely disjointed week to week.
Yeah, they think the band has no idea what they're doing. But inside the room, the producer is deliberately isolating these elements, finding out exactly which players can execute which specific frequency, so they can eventually blend it into a cohesive signature sound.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, what you are witnessing is actually a very rare, transparent look at tactical construction.
It's watching a blueprint being built in real time.
Under intense international scrutiny, no less.
Yeah.
Rebuilding a national team's identity from the ground up is never a linear progression. It requires painful regression.
Because Borthwick is actively breaking down old, ingrained habits.
Precisely. When you introduce a new blips defense, for example, players will naturally second-guess their positioning. That fraction of a second of hesitation is why the system looked so sluggish against Ireland.
So the sluggishness isn't laziness, it's cognitive overload.
Exactly. That experimentation, adjusting the levels on the mixing board, to use your analogy, is the only way a coach can discover which players possess the cognitive speed to execute the long-term vision. The friction you see on the pitch isn't a lack of direction, it is the necessary byproduct of structural change.
That completely reframes the viewing experience. You stop looking for immediate perfection and start looking for which players are processing the new system the fastest.
It changes how you watch the game entirely.
Speaking of how we view the game, I want to take a quick second to remind you to subscribe to Rugby Obsession. We really want to hear your read on this. Drop a comment below and let us know your thoughts and opinions on England's evolving playstyle.
Yeah, are you seeing Borthwick's blueprint taking shape? Or do you side with the critics who think it's just short-term chaos?
Let us know. Now, a tactical blueprint is entirely dependent on the physical realities of the players executing it. Over in England, they're building from scratch. But if we look across the channel at France, we see the exact opposite problem.
Right. How do you adapt an already elite system when your primary operating engine, Antoine Dupont, is physically compromised?
Which brings us to Jones's second takeaway, dealing with the harsh reality of physiological recovery.
Yeah, Jones observed the finale and stated quite bluntly that Dupont is not the force he was.
Wow.
I mean, he immediately qualifies that by saying Dupont is still an outstanding generational player. But he points out the mechanical truth. Dupont is navigating a post-ACL injury reality on the biggest stage in the world.
I kind of have to challenge the expectations placed on a player in this scenario, though. An anterior cruciate ligament tear fundamentally alters the biomechanics of a knee.
It really does.
For a scrum half whose entire game is predicated on explosive lateral steps and rapid deceleration, losing the ACL strips away their primary weapon. When a 250-pound back rower is hunting you down, if you lose that half step of explosive acceleration, isn't that a fatal vulnerability?
You'd think so, yeah.
Like, can pure intelligence actually cover up a physical deficit of that magnitude?
That is the exact tension we are watching unfold. A player recovering from an ACL reconstruction goes through a prolonged phase where their brain is sending signals for an explosive movement, but the reconstructed tissue simply cannot generate the same instantaneous force.
They are basically a different athlete for those first 12 to 18 months back.
For all intents and purposes, yes. But this is where Planet Rugby's analysis is so crucial. They point out that Dupont, at 80% physical capacity, is still operating at a level equal to the 100% peak of most other world-class players.
Which is just mind-blowing. How does he do it?
Through pure tactical manipulation. Because he cannot rely on a physical burst to escape trouble, he has to preemptively alter the geometry of the defense.
So he manipulates the speed of the ruck, uses his eyes to hold defensive pillars in place?
Exactly, for just a fraction of a second longer than they want to stay. And he pre-scans the field so thoroughly that he already knows his exit route before he even touches the ball.
It is essentially like upgrading a computer's operating system while the machine is actively running.
That's a great way to put it.
The hardware, his knee is temporarily bottlenecked. He knows he can't hit that explosive top gear to physically beat a defender, so he is consciously reallocating his elite processing speed to compensate.
He is reading the defensive line's momentum and calculating the exact angle of his pass to neutralize a defender before the physical confrontation even happens.
Precisely. We are watching the reality of physiological recovery clashing with pure tactical brilliance.
And the article notes that Dupont has this unmatched ability to create the illusion of having an unlimited amount of time on the ball.
But that perception of time doesn't come from physical speed.
No, it comes from his spatial awareness. He understands exactly how long it takes for a defender to close a 5-meter gap, and he operates flawlessly within that margin.
Witnessing a superstar voluntarily strip away the reliance on physical dominance and rely purely on sports intelligence while their body plays catch-up, it's just a masterclass in adaptation.
Truly incredible to watch a genius work within strict physical constraints.
But, while Dupont is adapting his internal game to survive on the pitch, the external sport of rugby feels like it is scrambling to adapt to an entirely new environment off the pitch.
Which brings us to Eddie Jones's third takeaway.
Right. He bridges this gap between individual brilliance and the broader entertainment value of the sport. The game itself is changing, and Jones attributes this directly to the social media era.
He does. And coming from a veteran coach whose career spans back to a much grittier, deeply traditional era of the sport, His stance is remarkably progressive.
Yeah, Eddie Jones looks at the current trend toward high-scoring, try-heavy matches filled with elaborate celebrations, and he doesn't condemn it.
Not at all. He says it's all about social media. And if that's the case, that's good. I'm not saying it's a bad thing at all.
He recognizes that the modern consumer, the audience driving the revenue of the sport through short-form video highlights, wants constant, breathless action.
But Jones's crucial caveat is that if rugby is going to fully embrace this high-octane entertainment model, the governing bodies have to fundamentally adjust how they interpret the laws of the game.
Because you cannot promise a fast-paced track meet and then enforce rules that drag the game into a grinding halt.
Exactly. And this is where Jones reveals a fascinating conversation he had with Steve Hansen. They were discussing the current state of the yellow card.
Right now, the mechanics of a yellow card dictate that the offending player is sent to the sin bin for 10 minutes. Your team is down a man.
But Hansen and Jones proposed a radically different approach. The free throw.
Drawing a direct structural parallel to basketball.
Yeah. Instead of removing a player from the pitch and playing 14 versus 15, you keep all 30 players on the field.
But for a single, cynical offense, the opposing team is awarded a free throw penalty kick right in front of the posts.
It is essentially guaranteed points. You punish the scoreboard, not the personnel count.
What's fascinating here is how this proposed rule change attempts to resolve the tension between modern entertainment demands and the traditional mechanics of rugby.
Because for over a century, the philosophy of rugby discipline has been built around the ultimate punishment of numerical disadvantage.
Right, you break the rules, your team suffers on the field by losing a physical body in the defensive line.
But let's look at the actual mechanics of a 14-on-15 game today. From an entertainment perspective, it frequently results in a deeply unbalanced, predictable, and stagnant 10 minutes of television.
The team that is down a man doesn't try to play rugby, they turtle up.
They kick the ball out of bounds, they intentionally slow down the rucks, and they kill the clock. It actively destroys the flow of the game.
So by implementing a free throw and keeping 15 players on the field at all times, you maintain the structural integrity of the defensive and offensive lines.
The geometry of the field remains intact for wide, sweeping attacks. But you still severely punish the offending team by instantly altering the scoreline.
I see the logic, but I have to play devil's advocate and push back on this.
Okay, let's hear it.
Does catering so heavily to the social media highlight real risk amputating the gritty soul of rugby?
That's the big fear for traditionalists.
Right. Because part of the core drama of this sport is watching a team desperately defend their try line while down a man. A 14-man goal line stand is pure, exhausting theater.
It really is. It tests a team's absolute physical and mental limits.
The crowd feels every single tackle. If we just turn rule infractions into a sterile, guaranteed 3 points on the board via free throw, don't we lose that profound emotional roller coaster?
It is the ultimate tightrope walk between tradition and evolution.
Nah.
You have to ask yourself how you, as a modern viewer, actually consume the sport.
Yeah.
The traditionalists romanticize the grinding, scoreless 20-minute forward battles in the mud. But the data shows that the broader audience is drawn to the breathtaking, full-field counterattacks that utilize the entire width of the pitch.
And the free throw concept, theoretically, guarantees that the game state remains conducive to those full-field attacks.
Think about the risk-reward calculus it introduces. Right now, a player might cynically knock the ball down, pick the yellow card, and trust their team to defend with 14 men.
But if that cynical knock-on results in an automatic, guaranteed 3 points, the tactical math changes.
It forces teams to constantly chase the game on the scoreboard rather than managing the clock.
It would create an absolute arms race of scoring. If your team gives away a free throw and instantly goes down by 3 points, you can't just kick for territory and play defense.
You have to immediately march down the field and engineer a 5-point try to regain the lead.
It completely alters the psychological momentum of the match. It takes the punishment from a defensive disadvantage and turns it into an offensive imperative.
And that loops back beautifully to the very first point about tactical blueprints.
Oh, how so?
Well, if the sport evolves its laws to mandate faster, higher-scoring 15-on-15 continuous play, the systems that coaches like Steve Borthwick are building today must account for that future reality.
Right. A defensive system built on slow, attritional warfare will become totally obsolete.
The identities of these international teams will be forced to shift toward offensive execution.
And players like Antoine Dupont, who possess elite cognitive processing speed and can manipulate space without relying solely on brute force, will become the ultimate archetype.
Exactly, in a game that prioritizes rapid decision-making.
It really leaves you with a provocative thought to mull over. We have looked at how a team searches for its identity, how a superstar adapts to his physical limitations, and how the laws of the game might change to guarantee entertainment.
Yeah, all massive shifts.
So, if rugby successfully implements something like the free throw to ensure high-scoring, open-field play for the social media era, what will the perfect rugby player look like in a decade?
That is the million-dollar question.
If the game moves away from the grinding, set-piece, heavy trench warfare, does the traditional heavy-set proc become a liability?
Probably. Will we see a whole new breed of athlete emerge across the forward pack?
Yeah, players who are lighter, faster, and entirely optimized for a breathless, highlight-driven track meet. The physical evolution of the players might be the most dramatic consequence of all.
It's going to be wild to watch.
We really want to know what stands out to you from all of this. Get in the comments and let us know your thoughts and opinions on this free throw concept.
Yeah, does it excite you, or do you think it ruins the fabric of the game?
And what do you make of Antoine Dupont's return? Can his sheer tactical genius make up for that missing 20% of physical explosiveness as he recovers?
We want to hear from you. And before we go, one final reminder to hit that subscribe button to Rugby Obsession so you never miss a deep dive into the tactics and trends shaping the sport.
Thank you for listening to the Rugby Obsession Deep Dive, and we'll look forward to you listening to our next episode.